On the murky water there was silence, broken only by the buzzing of insects and the cries of monkeys in the distance. As the cameraman approached the edge of the boat, he could not have imagined that he would witness one of the most chilling scenes in history. A shadow emerged from beneath the surface, longer than their entire boat. It was a snake. A real, gigantic green anaconda. The camera only briefly captured it as it slid by, and for a short moment it became clear this was not something ordinary. It was something that could easily overturn their boat with a single movement. That footage made its way to the internet, sparking a storm of debates. Some shouted that it was edited, others said it wasn't a snake at all, but a fin or a piece of wood. But then other footage emerged from locals, from fishermen, from researchers, all showing the same thing. In the Amazon there exists a creature of incredible size. Not something mythical, but quite real, alive and dangerous. This anaconda was not just large. According to biologists' estimates, if the sizes in the video are accurate, it could reach almost 100 feet in length. That is 2 to 3 times longer than the largest officially recorded snake on Earth. And if such creatures do indeed live in the tropical thickets, how many more such monsters are hidden from view? But this story is far from the strangest. One diver descended into the waters and came face to face with such a monster that even the camera couldn't save him. They went to shoot a new underwater documentary project to explore a hard-to-navigate river in South America. One of the divers, Joe, was experienced. He knew how to handle the current, not to fear murky water, and to remain calm. But this time, something different awaited him. During the second dive, he noticed a strange shadow. At first, he thought it was a tree trunk, but when the trunk started to move, everything became clear. It was a living creature. It slowly glided along the bottom, and only when Joe looked at the camera screen, he realized the scale. It was longer than a school bus, with a body thickness like that of an adult in a bulletproof vest. And the eyes, cold, black, staring, he surfaced abruptly. Everyone on the shore was in shock. The recording was preserved, but only part of the body is visible in the footage. However, one thing is clear. If he had been a couple of feet closer, there might not have been a return to the surface. These shots became a sensation among biologists and cryptozoologists. Some claimed it was just an anaconda, but most agreed. The size exceeds all known species. And somewhere down in the depths lives something much larger than we are used to imagining. However, what was captured by the camera of a hunter in the jungle defies any explanation. These shots were taken by accident. The hunter set up the camera to track the movement of deer. But instead of peaceful animals, he captured horror. Against the backdrop of trees, a long curved shadow appeared as if from nowhere. It moved too smoothly and precisely to be the wind. It was something alive. The camera captured only a silhouette, but you can see something colossal crawling through the thick vines and bushes. Biologists who studied the footage argued for a long time. It doesn't look like an anaconda. The movements are different. The contours are strange. Some frames show that the creature has something like protrusions or bristles on its back. Others insisted that it was not a snake at all, but an ancient type of reptile that, according to all scientific data, went extinct hundreds of millions of years ago. But the most eerie part is the end of the recording. The camera suddenly shuts off, even though the battery was full. Some believe the creature noticed the device, while others think something even more terrifying was nearby. And if you think all this sounds like a fairy tale, then the story of a snake swallowing a person whole sounds like a nightmare. But this is no longer a tale. One morning in a small Indonesian village, the locals noticed one person was missing. The man had gone out in the evening to check the fields and did not return. The next morning, a search began, and soon they found not him, but a huge python with a swollen belly. The men dragged the snake to an open area, and what they discovered inside left them in shock. It was the body of the missing man, whole, completely consumed. This story made headlines around the world, and this is not the only case. In various parts of Asia and Africa, dozens of incidents have been recorded where snakes attacked people. They did not kill out of fear. They swallowed as if it were food. The size of some of these snakes is astonishing. Over 30 feet in length, with jaws capable of opening almost to a 180-degree angle. And if snakes of such size live in the jungle, who is to say they won't grow to even larger proportions? Especially since some footage taken by eyewitnesses began to mysteriously disappear afterward. Someone was deleting them, or maybe not just someone. Many mysterious videos have surfaced online capturing giant snakes. But almost immediately after publication, many of them were deleted. Pages disappeared, accounts were blocked, originals were lost. What is particularly strange is that some videos were allegedly uploaded by local residents who had no interest in hype. One such video was made by a schoolboy from Malaysia. He recorded how the enormous body of a snake slithered between the trees near his home. The recording lasts only a few seconds, but those were seconds of horror. Not only is the snake itself visible, but also how it knocks down a tree with a single movement. 2 days later, the video disappeared from his account. Local authorities claimed that it was edited, but no expert was able to prove it was fake. Theories emerged. Could it be that someone truly doesn't want us to know that real titans live in the jungle? But if the scale of these creatures is still in question, then the next story puts everything in perspective. Because when you place a snake next to an elephant, it becomes clear how serious everything is. Sometimes it's hard to grasp the scale until you compare. So, if you put the largest officially recorded python next to an adult African elephant, it seems the elephant wins. But now take a look at those captured by cameras but not acknowledged by scientists. In one video, filmed by a drone over the swamps of the Amazon, a snake is seen crossing a shallow pond. Based on landmarks on the ground and trees, its length is about 80 feet. Now imagine, an elephant is just over 20. It turns out the snake is almost 4 times longer. And if it decides to attack, the elephant doesn't stand much of a chance. But what if such creatures are not just a few? What if these giants are descendants of prehistoric reptiles that avoided extinction by hiding in impenetrable jungles? Things get even more interesting when we move to Asia, where locals speak of encounters with a true snake legend. In the mountains of China, at the foot of an ancient monastery for generations, locals have been telling stories of a huge snake-like creature that appears during the rainy season. According to them, it coils around houses, destroys barns, and disappears as suddenly as it appears. These stories were long considered to be fiction until footage from surveillance cameras installed on one of the farms came to light. The video shows a building seemingly shaking, and then a giant appears from behind the barn. Only part of the creature's body is visible, but it's enough to gauge its size. It's twice as large as a truck and moves with astonishing speed. Scientists who received this video couldn't explain it. Some said it was edited, others suggested it was an unknown species of snake, while locals are convinced it's the moon snake that has lived in these mountains for centuries. But if even the mountains can't hide such a monster, what then could be lurking underground? Sometimes, the scariest creatures don't crawl on the surface. They wait underground, in old mines, caves, tunnels. This happened to a group of researchers who descended into an abandoned mine in Southeast Asia. They were searching for rare minerals but found something entirely different. When one of them entered a side tunnel, he heard a rustling, then a sound resembling heavy breathing. And then Toot looked at him. Dimly glowing eyes looked at him. The others ran to the scream but found no one. The researchers found him only an hour later. He was lying off to the side unconscious, covered in dust. The only thing he could say was that it was a snake, but not like any other. Later, after reviewing the footage from the head camera, the team saw a short but distinct moment. Large, thick rings of a body disappearing into the depths of the shaft. And a hiss. A very long one, as if a warning. Since then, the shaft has been closed, and no one has returned there. But as practice has shown, swamps also know how to keep their secrets. Especially if you set up a camera there overnight. A group of enthusiasts set up several night cameras in a remote Louisiana swamp, hoping to capture alligators. But one night, something strange happened. At first, the camera recorded strange waves as if a huge object was swimming underwater. Then a splash, and a fragment of a body appears in the frame, huge scales, dense dark skin, and a characteristic crawling motion. In the morning, they went to check the area. At the camera site, there were tracks, indentations in the ground, trampled grass. No alligator could leave such a trace. The video spread across forums and was almost immediately banned. Viewers wrote that it looked more like the mythical thunder moccasin from Native American legends. But one scientist from Texas admitted that the footage might show a new, undocumented species of snake, at least 60 feet long. If the swamp can produce such creatures, what then can be expected from the wild savanna of Africa? In Western Africa, there is a village where shepherds are afraid to graze cattle by the river. There, they say, something lives. Every few months, one of the animals disappears. And without a trace. No blood, no signs of a struggle. Only the solitary sound of a splash at night. Journalists who arrived at the scene witnessed a strange incident. The camera captured how the herd suddenly scattered away from the water. A moment later, a huge ring-shaped body emerged from the water, made a lunge, and disappeared. It all lasts no more than 2 seconds, but it's enough to send chills down your spine. The locals are convinced it's Ngada, the serpent guarding the water. According to legend, it has lived there since time immemorial. Scientists shake their heads. Fairy tales, but the footage suggests otherwise. However, once this predator made a mistake and got caught on a hook. Though, not for long. The story took place in the mid-2000s in the Mekong River Delta. A local fisherman named Than went out for a night catch, as usual. He used strong tackle because in these waters, large catfish weighing up to 100 pounds were sometimes caught. But that night, the tackle was pulled with such force that it tore the pole from its fittings and the boat jerked as if it had been snagged by a motorboat. Than reacted instantly, jumped into the water and grabbed onto the tackle. Within a minute, he realized that he hadn't caught a fish at all. A massive snake-like shape was slowly rising from the depths. He dropped everything and swam to the shore. Once on land, he, along with other fishermen, tried to pull the monster out. But the tackle broke. However, one of the men managed to turn on a camera. The recording shows a thick, scaly body rising from the murky water. Its length is only partially visible, but by estimation, it's no less than 65 feet. And it's not an anaconda. The head is too narrow, a completely different shape of the scales. Possibly some kind of river snake, the existence of which we were not even aware. After the video was published on a local news portal, the clip was removed without explanation and unknown individuals in uniform visited the fishermen and asked them not to spread fabrications. Than has not gone back to the river since then. But even if people encountered this by chance, there are those who have seen similar things under much more serious circumstances. For example, during the Vietnam War, many inexplicable things happened in the jungles, but one incident forever entered the unofficial Army chronicles. An American helicopter was patrolling the area along the Laos River. From the cockpit, the pilot noticed a strange movement among the foliage. Something enormous was moving through the trees, breaking them like straw. They turned around and hovered over the spot. The camera captured the body of a giant snake, at least 80 feet long, with a body width of almost 6 feet. The pilot, frightened, opened fire with the machine gun. The bullets hit the creature, it thrashed about, then became still. After a few seconds, it surfaced and slowly sank into the water, leaving behind red foam and disturbed plants. The command received this footage, but later it was confiscated, classified, and officially declared as an optical illusion and crew panic. Nevertheless, years later, the pilot confirmed in an interview that he saw something from the prehistoric era. This story became one of the most famous military mysteries related to cryptozoology. But serpent-like monsters are not only found on land. True sea titans hide in depths inaccessible to humans. The ocean covers more than 70% of the Earth's surface, and we know less about it than we do about Mars, especially about its deep layers. And it is there, at incredible depths, according to rare witnesses and inexplicable traces on underwater devices, that creatures resembling snakes, only dozens of times larger, reside. In the Q 2000s, off the coast of New Zealand, a deep-sea camera captured something elongated and writhing, almost the length of a submarine. The creature was moving at a depth of over 5,000 feet. The recording lasts only 7 seconds, but it's enough to understand that this is neither an eel nor a giant squid. It was a creature with smooth, shimmering scales and an eye comparable in size to a tennis ball. Similar footage was obtained by Japanese scientists in the area of the Mariana Trench. They detected signals from an unknown biological object whose speed exceeded the capabilities of all known fish and marine mammals. And all this leads us to the question, what was the longest snake ever observed by humans? In the south of Brazil in the 2000s, a group of geologists discovered the mummified body of a giant snake in a collapsed tunnel. According to their measurements, the body length was over 100 feet, weighing nearly 5,000 pounds. The scales were dense, almost like armor. In structure, it resembled the ancient titan snake from the Pleistocene, the Titanoboa. However, officially, this snake became extinct tens of thousands of years ago. They wanted to extract and study the skeleton. But 2 days before the specialists arrived, the tunnel collapsed again. When it was reopened, the body had disappeared. Only photos and reports remained. Some suggest that it was not a fossil, but a recently deceased creature. A similar case occurred in Indonesia, where a dried skin over 90 feet long was found in an abandoned temple. Again, no official acknowledgements. Only rumors and footage shared among the locals. But in the end, maybe we are too fixated on size. After all, sometimes the scariest predator is not the largest one, but the one that can hide and kill quickly. In the forest of Papua New Guinea, for years locals have been telling stories about snakes that, although not gigantic, are incredibly dangerous. They are called night boas. They are almost invisible in the dark, but can attack with astonishing precision and speed. Their venom doesn't kill but paralyzes, keeping the victim conscious. According to eyewitness accounts and traces, these snakes reach only about 20 feet in length but behave like hunters from nightmares. Once, a tourist group lost their guide. He was found only with, a day later, tightly wrapped in the snake's body. When help arrived, the creature had already slithered away, leaving only an indentation on the ground, as if from a heavy cable. It's stories like these that make you think. You don't always have to be the biggest to be the most dangerous. Sometimes, those who are smaller are far more terrifying. And if we still haven't studied them all, it means they might be much closer than we think. Conclusion. The world is full of living mysteries. Some of them are captured on camera to shock us. Others disappear as soon as they surface, but they all speak of one thing. Our planet still hides monsters that we have only heard about in legends, or maybe even more.